Iranian Empress Farah Pahlavi has urged the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, to deter Tehran from continuing malicious activities. In a letter to United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Empress Farah Pahlavi expressed concern about the fate of Ahmadreza Jalali, an Iranian-Swedish professor on death row in Evin prison for alleged espionage charges. In the letter, Queen Farah also expressed concern that the Islamic Republic may carry out the death sentence against the researcher. Ahmadreza Jalali was arrested in April 2016 for alleged espionage charges and sentenced to death after a grossly unfair trial that once again exposes not only the Iranian authorities' steadfast commitment to use of the death penalty, but their utter contempt for the rule of law. In her letter to Guterres, Empress Farah Pahlavi wrote that the same baseless charges were brought up against the Iranian journalist Ruhollah Zam, who was abducted from Iraq and transferred to Iran in December 2020. The regime hanged Zam in secret. The espionage charges against Ahmadreza Jalali is not acceptable in any fair and impartial civil procedure rules, Empress Farah Pahlavi said. You should remind the Iranian regime that the international community is aware of its sinister motives in intimidating the defenseless people of Iran, she added. This regime is very isolated in today's world because it has destroyed the peace of mind of its people inside and the reputation of our country abroad. In her dissertation, Empress Farah called an international organization to intervene in order to prevent further atrocities by the Islamic regime against the people. The United States hits Iran with fresh sanctions on January 5, 2021. The United States on Tuesday blacklisted a Chinese company that makes elements for steel production, 12 Iranian steel and metals makers, and 3 foreign-based sales agents of a major Iranian metals and mining holding company seeking to deprive Iran of revenues as United States President Donald Trump's term winds down. In a statement, the United States Treasury Department named the China-based company as Kaifeng Pingmei New Carbon Materials Technology Company, saying it specialized in manufacture of carbon materials and provided thousands of metric tons of materials to Iranian steel companies between December 2019 and June 2020. Among the 12 Iranian companies blacklisted are the Pasargad Steel Complex and the Gilan Steel Complex Company, both of which were designated under Executive Order 13871 for operating in the Iranian steel sector. The others are Iran-based Middle East Mines and Mineral Industries Development Holding Company, Khazar Steel Company, Gilan Steel Complex, South Ruhina Steel Complex, Yaz Industrial Constructional Steel Rolling Mill, West Albor Steel Complex, Esfarayen Industrial Complex, Bonab Steel Industry Complex, Sirjan Iranian Steel and Zarand Iranian Steel Company. The United Arab Emirates intelligence agents have allegedly arrested several Iranians in Dubai and Abu Dhabi in connection with allegations they were plotting to carry out attacks to avenge the killing of IRGC Quds Force Commander Qasem Soleimani. According to a report by Israel's Channel 12 News, the suspects are being questioned, with the United Arab Emirates sharing information gleaned during the interrogation with its allies and friendly states. The intelligence agents are investigating to determine whether the Iranian terror cell arrested by the United Arab Emirates forces were specifically targeting Israeli tourists and business people, Channel 12 reported. Soleimani was assassinated a year ago on January 3, 2020 in a military drone attack by the United States forces in Iraq. Israeli military forces have been on high alert this weekend in anticipation of a possible attack to mark the anniversary of Soleimani's death by Iran or one of its proxies in the region. Security forces elsewhere around the region, particularly where there are Israeli tourists and or diplomats, are likewise being especially vigilant. Thousands of Israelis have taken the opportunity in recent months to travel to Dubai for business as well as pleasure, including to celebrate special family events. Since the opening of diplomatic relations between the Jewish state and the United Arab Emirates, among those flocking to United Arab Emirates destinations are strictly Orthodox Jews who celebrate weddings and other events in Dubai's less restrictive environment, while finding the same kashrut standards they have at home. Thanks to the United Arab Emirates' willingness to work with kashrut authorities to provide a strict standard of kosher fare. Iran on Monday began enriching uranium up to 20% at an underground facility and seized a South Korean-flagged oil tanker in the crucial Strait of Hormuz, further escalating tensions in the Middle East between Tehran and the West. The announcement of enrichment at Fordo came as fears rose that Tehran had seized the empty Hankook Chemi. Iran later acknowledged the seizure, alleging that the vessel's oil pollution sparked the move. However, hours earlier, Tehran said a South Korean diplomat was expected to visit in the coming days to negotiate the release of billions of dollars in its assets now frozen in Seoul. The dual incidents came amid heightened tensions between Iran and the United States in the waning days of President Donald Trump's term in office. During Trump's tenure, the United States leader unilaterally withdrew from Tehran's nuclear deal with world powers in 2018 and set off months of tense episodes that increasingly strained relations between the countries. Iranian state television quoted spokesman Ali Rabei as saying that President Hassan Rouhani had given the order for the move at Fordo facility. Iran's decision to begin enriching to 20% purity a decade ago nearly triggered an Israeli strike targeting its nuclear facilities, tensions that only abated with the 2015 atomic deal. A resumption of 20% enrichment could see that brinksmanship return, as that level of purity is only a technical step away from weapons-grade levels of 90%. From Israel, which has its own undeclared nuclear weapons program, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticized Iran's enrichment decision, saying it cannot be explained in any way other than the continuation of realizing its goal to develop a military nuclear program. The main index of Tehran Stock Exchange lost 39,000 points, settling for 1.310 million. Indices of Iranian Copper Industries Company, Social Security Investment Company, Persian Gulf Petrochemical Industry Commercial Company, Isfahan Mubarakeh Steel Company were most indices dropping. People in Iran are fed up with inflation rampant as the nation faces an ongoing economic crisis due to mismanagement and administrative corruption. The COVID-19 pandemic, however, deteriorated Iran's ailing economy, yet the economic crisis is rooted in elements beyond pandemic fallout. Iran's financial corruption is at high and crippled the country, with the cost of living and prices of food, rent, and shopping on the rise. Most vulnerable cities suffer the brunt of economic crisis. They resort to buying rotting produce or food in small quantities to survive. Iran's gas capsule and bread lines are so long, citizens are fed up with the regime's corruption, yet Tehran spends billions for terrorism. 3 Sunni prisoners were hanged on Thursday in Bakilabad prison in the northeastern part of the country. The sudden implementation of the execution of the prisoners took place while their relatives were deprived of the last visit with their beloved ones. A group of citizens, environmentalists, nurses, medical staff, firefighters, peasants, teachers, vendors, and orchardmen held protests in Iran in the past week over financial difficulties, unpaid wages, lost money, job issues, and water scarcity.